Okay, good morning. We're on at the top of 27A, uh, end of the second line. So we're in the middle of discussing the permissibility of various things that a Jew can do for a non-Jew or for an idolater and vice versa. And we got involved with Kutim and Bris Milah. So the Sofer of Yehuda Kusi Shaper Dami. Um, is it is it true that so Rabbi Yehuda in the Brisa said that a kuti is preferable. A kuti can circumcise a Jew, but not an Ovid Kochavim. But is that so? Vatanya, we have a Brisa. Yisrael malos hakusi, kusi leo Yisrael. A Jew can circumcise a kuti, but not vice versa. Mipnei shemal l'shem hargrizim, because his intention is for hargrizim, which is the holy site of the kutim. So in other words, it's for avodah zarah. So he's doing it with an intention as part of an avodah zarah. Divrei Rabbi Huda. This is what Rabbi Huda says. So right here we see that Rabbi Huda holds that it is not okay for a kuti to circumcise a Jew. But we'll continue with the verse. Amar lo Rabbi Yossi v'chihechem atzinu mila min atar lishma. So what? Like the mila is an act. It doesn't. Nobody says where do we find that it has to be done. Lishma, for the with the intention of a proper circumcision for the mitzvah. Ella molva halechad sheteitzi nishmaso. Is like let the kuti go and do circumcisions for his whole life until he dies, which is a bit of a strange a strange um, thing, a strange way to put it, but it's he's trying not to say something positive about kutim. He says let him die doing circumcisions, but the circumcisions are fine. Eliel. So anyway, the point is Rabbi Yehuda said that it is okay. So now we'll go back to the idea of, okay, we'll switch the views of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda is the one that says that it's okay for an Ovid Kochavim, but not a Kuti. Uda Kakasha, Rabbi Yehuda, but yesterday we saw a Brisa where Rabbi Yehuda contradicts that. Hahid Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, different Rabbi Yehuda. That was Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, and this is Rabbi Yehuda a different time. Titania, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Omer, and we're going to now support that by showing that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi it actually supports that view. Titania, we have Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Omer, how do you know you can't do an Ovid Kochavim can't do circumcision? Now we have indication that it is Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi and not Rabbi Yehuda who says that Ovid Kochavim is no good um, for Mila, and we can say that the other Rabbi Yehuda that we're dealing with could there's no indication that he holds otherwise, and so it's fine for us to say that he's the one that says that Ovid Kochavim can do Mila and not Kuti, and Rabbi Meir is the reverse. Amar Rav Chisda, my Talmud Rabbi Yehuda. What is Rabbi Yehuda's reasoning? D'chsiv Lashem Himol. The pasuk says we're as we often do, we're juxtaposing the end of one pasuk with the beginning of another. So by juxtaposing the words Lashem and Himal indicates that it has to be Lishma, and so Novi Kochavim can't do it. For Rabbi Yossi, Himal Yimal, but Rabbi Yossi says has a different verse that he says Himal Yimal means like any way that you do the circumcision is fine by the double Lashon of Himal Yimal. Vida. So then, according to Rabbi Yossi, Haksiv Lashem Himal. So how do you explain the pasuk that we juxtapose that indicates that it has to be Lishma? Hahu Pesach. That's talking about Pesach. So the source of that pasuk is when you do the Pesach La Hashem to Hashem Himal Lachem Kol Zohar, you have to be circumcised. It has nothing to do with the actual act of Milah. Vidach Name Haksiv Himal Yimal. So now Rabbi Yehuda, he likes the Lashem Himal. He does believe that indicates it has to be Lishma. So what do you do with the Himal Yimal, circumcise in any circumstances? It's not going to bother him. It's just a colloquial use of the phrase, which is a little odd because in many places we use this double lashon to indicate something, but here Rabbi Yehuda is not going to do that. Excuse me. Okay, so Itmar. Now we have a brisa that's going to say that Mila, the circumcision done by an idol worshiper, is not valid. Daru bar Papa Mishmei Darav. Amar Daru said, Esprisi Tishmar, you should keep my covenant. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Himal Yimal. So each of them has their own verse that indicates that it has to be um, that sorry, no, we have different views here. Atos B'Sisi Shmor means you have to keep the covenant, so that somehow indicates that an Ovid Kohanim can't do it. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Himo, you can anyone any kind of circumcision is good. Maybe now, what are they arguing about? Arvi Mahul the Gavnuni Mahul Ikabenayu. Um, if you have an Arab who is circumcised, can he do a circumcision? And Gavnunim apparently is another culture, another people that practice circumcision. So if they themselves and why do they circumcise themselves? Because they consider themselves Bnei Avraham, right? So they're part of that bris. So uh, so so perhaps an Arab like an Arab circumciser would be valid, even though an Ovid Kochavim would not be, which is really interesting because as Brisi Sishmar, they're part of the bris, right? They consider themselves bound by the bris of Abraham. Mandiamar Himal Yimal, if you say that Himal Yimal is the source that you can that that they're fine, so Ika. So so um Oh, okay. So Himal Yimal is not the double lashon that anyone can circumcise. It's like someone who is circumcised can circumcise someone else. So that would include an Arab, okay, that he's circumcised lishma, as it were, because he considers himself part of that bris. Um, so he can circumcise, but Mandi Amar is Brisi Sishmar. But if you're using the pasuk in the Torah that you have to keep my covenant, that's the covenant of Sinai Leka. So. Uh, Sorry, not the current sign. I'm getting this confused. Tiara is Brisi Shishmar. Mandia is Brisi Shishmar. If you're saying it's from this verse that says you have to keep my covenant, so um, so Leka, so we don't consider them part of that bris. Um, Okay, so I think I misstated it earlier. They are why are they circumcised? Because that's their culture, right? They consider themselves descendants of Abraham, who was the first one to be circumcised and took that upon himself for his children. So as far as we're concerned, they're not part of that bris. But Himal Yimal would indicate that if you are circumcised, then you can circumcise a Jew, then that they would qualify because it doesn't matter why they circumcise themselves. Well, but if you're going to take that view that if they're circumcised, they can circumcise someone else, they can circumcise us. But we have a Mishnah against this. If you say make a neder that you're not going to have any benefit from arelim, from people who are not circumcised, mutar ba'arle Yisrael. So that term arelim is understood not as whether you physically have a bris, but rather whether you're a ben bris, right? Whether you're part of the covenant. So you can actually have benefit from someone who is Jewish but uncircumcised. And even someone who's an Ovid Kochavim, even if he has been circumcised, you still can't take benefit from him because the term Arelim doesn't refer to the physical bris, it refers to the covenantal membership in the covenant. Alma, so we see Alf Gavna Mihile, even when they are actually circumcised, Kamandala Mihili Damu. So don't tell me that Himal Yimo means that someone who is circumcised can circumcise a Jew. No, we don't even consider them circumcised because the term Arel really it isn't referring to the physical bris. So we're going to say Himal Yimo is the same. Eli Kaminayu, so what would be the difference between Rav and Rav Yochanan? Yisrael Shemesu Achav Machmas Mila V'lo Malu. What if someone has a medical exemption from Mila? If a baby has two brothers that predeceased him because of as a result of their Mila, so we can't do Mila on him because clearly there's a risk of his life. Um, So Lamandi Amar V'yatas Brisi Sishmar, if you say the source of of whether he can. So can that baby when he grows up, obviously, and he's uncircumcised, can he do mila for another Jew? So if you say the source is viatos brisis ishmar ika, so you're in the bris, right? Just you have a medical exemption. Laman diar himo yimo, but if you say it depends on actual circumcision, leka. You may be a full-fledged Jew, but you don't have a bris, so you can't do a bris on someone else. So Gemara says, wait a minute. So what about what we just said? That it's not talking about physical milah, it's talking about whether you're in the covenant. Even though this person doesn't have it hasn't been circumcised physically. Come on to Mehili, he's still part of the covenant of people who are circumcised. So, like, you're splitting hairs again, the same as we did before. Elif and I will try to find a different case that where this would make a difference. Which pasuk you learn it from? Isha, a woman. Lamandi Amar Beatas Brisi Sishmar Leka. If you say that that the source is you keep my bris, right? You keep my covenant. The Isha love bas milahi. Like this covenant doesn't apply to women. Yes, women are part of the let's say they're part of the Jewish people, clearly, and they have mitzvahs and so on, but they're not involved in circumcision because they're not in the circumcision club, as it were, because they have nothing to circumcise. So they're not members of that bris, that covenant of Mila. But if you say that the source is if you're circumcised, you can circumcise someone else. Ika, the Isha command mehila damya. We're going to consider women as already circumcised, which is a little bit strange. But like she's a member of the club in that she's part of the Jewish people. So umikal mandiyawar Isha lo. But Gemara says, wait, so what are you saying? That a woman can't do circumcision? Vaksiva, tikach tzipara tsar. Moshe Rabbeinu's children were circumcised by tzipara in that passage in Shemos. So Karibe vatakach. So we're going to read that as not that Tzipara was the active one. She was the one that caused the mohel to do the act, to do the circumcision, but she didn't do it herself. Okay, it's a little far-fetched. Vaksi vatichros, but the same passage, the same passage there says she did the circumcision. Karibe vatachras, she caused it to be done. Diamro, she had the man do it. You by saying, or you could say Asya ihi va'aschala va'asa Moshe va'agmara, or you could say she started it and Moshe came and finished it. Okay, so we're grasping at straws here, but we could find a way to explain away that case of Sipara doing Mila wasn't really her. So that's not a definitive proof that women can do Mila. Now, can women do Mila or not? Beyond my scope. The Rishonim indicate um, that actually you can, but you can't prove. Like it's possible to envision a view in the Gemara that a woman can't do Mila, but it seems like maybe they can. Next mission, Misrapin Mehen Ripoy Mama. Back to the topic of what can or can't you do with an Ovid Kochavim. You can pay a doctor, a non-Jewish, an idolatrous doctor, to treat you. Of a low Ripoy Nefashos, but not. But the Gemara will discuss what this means, Mammon and Nefashos. So let's leave it for the Gemara. You can't take haircuts anywhere. Do a mayor in a public place where people are watching? You can have a haircut from an idolater, and you're not afraid that he's going to kill you, basically. But not in a private space. So my ripu mama, my ripu nefashos. What does the Mishnah mean? If it means that you're doing it for pay, ripu nefashos bechinam, and that ripu nefashos that somehow means for free. Litne misrapim mehem b'sachar v'lo bechinam. That's not the right term, right? Nefesh indicates something else. There's another word that indicates free, which is bechinam. So that's not what it means. Ripu mamon davar shem b'sachana. What we're talking about is whether it's a life-threatening condition or not. So ripui mamon means that it's something that you want to pay for because whatever it's of benefit to you. And ripui nefashos davar sheish bo sakana. Ripui nefashos that you can do something that endangers your life. So in other words, like let's call it elective and required surgery. Okay. And the Amar Rav Yehuda, but Rav Yehuda says, "Afilu rivda de chusilta lo matzinan minayu." Even like bloodletting, which is just causes pain. You don't go to an idolater. Ella, so that indicates that no, that's not the difference because Rabbi Yehuda is saying here that under no circumstances can neither that kind of ripui mammon or nefashos makes no difference. Like you can't even go for bloodletting. Ella, so what is the explanation then? Ripui mammon behemto. Money, for money means go to a veterinarian. Ripui nefashos gufe. But what you can do is go for yourself, for a person, to a idolatrous doctor. And this is what Rebbe said. Afilu rivda dechusilto lo mitasina minayo. Even even bloodletting you don't do with them. Um, um, what is it getting at? I'm missing something here. Just a second. Ah, okay. So that's what Rabbi Yehuda says that you can go to a veterinarian, but not to a doctor, not to a doctor for humans. Even and Rabbi Yehuda is saying like even for a minor thing, even for blood, puncturing your leg for bloodletting. Rav Chisda Marukva, Rav Chisda says, "Aval im amar lo." Some ploni yafelo, some ploni ralo. But if it's just like an opinion you're seeking, like you go to a pharmacist and say what should I take for this condition, mutter, that's okay because then he's not actively you know acting on you. Savar shayulim mashule because the pharmacist is thinking that he's just like asking his opinion, but he's not going to rely on him. So like and he's thinking like he's fishing around for opinions. So like I'm not gonna be successful in killing him anyway if I give him the wrong advice. I might as well give him the right advice. Yeah, so Gavral Rue Nafshe. And if he gives the wrong opinion, then and then the Jew finds out that tells everybody, oh, this idolatrous doctor told me different than you, and it turns out that would be dangerous, then he's going to have his reputation will suffer, and he won't even have accomplished killing the Jew. Amar Rabba Amar Rabbi Yochanan. The Amri law Amar Rabbi Chisda Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So someone said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Safek Chai Safek Meis. If you have a condition where it's you may or may not live, En Misrapin Miem. Don't go to an idolater. Vadai Meis. But if you have a condition that is clearly life-threatening, then misrapin mehan, then you can go to this doctor. So meis vayika chayisha. So Gemara says, wait a minute. So if you're gonna die, but like you don't know when you're gonna die. You're gonna die tomorrow, right? So can you go to a Avodah Zarah practitioner who might kill you today. So then you're cutting your life short by a day. You're risking cutting your life short by a day. So the Gemara says, "L'chayisha lo chashina." Um, when there's a definite risk, a longer term risk to your life, then we don't worry about the shorter term, a greater short term risk. Where do you get that from? So you remember the case of the four Mitzoraim outside of the city that was under siege, and they're starving because they have no food. They can't go in the city because they're Mitzoraim, and the whoever it was, the Assyrians were besieging the city, so they're stuck. So they're like, well, if we're going to starve, then maybe let's throw ourselves on the mercy of the of Aram, right? Let's throw ourselves on the mercy of the besiegers. Maybe they'll let us live, maybe not. But if we stay here, we'll die tomorrow. So again, here they're actively putting themselves in immediate danger because they might actually be killed by the enemy soldiers. Um, so so how could they do that? All right, they're putting their immediate lives at greater risk, even though they're pretty sure that without action they'll die tomorrow from hunger. So we see that it's okay to do that you can put yourself in momentary danger to try to avert a medium-term danger, a definite danger, or a definite, something that you assess will definitely kill you. Mesve. Lo yisav adam imaminin. We have a brisa that a person shouldn't do business with a min, a heretic, vein misrapin mehen afilu chaysha, and don't go to their doctors, even for even if you only have you're on your deathbed. Don't bring a doctor in. Masa ben Dama ben Achosos Rabbi Shmuel. There's a case of Ben Dama, the nephew of Rabbi Shmuel. Sheikisha nachash. He kisha nachash. He was bitten by a snake. Uba Yaakov Ishkvar Sachanya Leraposa. So the local doctor was Yaakov. V'loinicha Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael wouldn't let the doctor in. V'yamarlo Rabbi Yishmael Achi. So Ben Dama said to Yishmael, Rabbi Yishmael, my brother, Hanach lo v'arafin. Let him in. Let him give me medicine. Let him cure me. V'ani avi mikra min Torah shimuta. I'll prove it to you. This is permitted by the Torah. Before he could bring his proof, he dropped dead from the snake bite. Karlov Rabbi Shmuel, Ashrecha ben Dama, happy are you ben Dama, Shaguf Chatahar v'yasan nishmas labetara. Your body is pure and your neshama left in purity. V'lavartel divrei chaverecha. You didn't do an aver. You didn't transgress the word of the rabbis. They said that someone who breaches a fence should be bitten by a snake, right? So in other words, don't don't cross the rabbis. Don't ignore the rulings of the rabbis because you'll get bitten by a snake, which is a little ironic because he was actually bitten by a snake. The Gemara will discuss in a minute. Shani minus demashchas. So anyway, so what's the problem from here? We see that Rabbi Shmuel would not permit, he would not permit this momentary risk in order to cure his nephew of a certain death. So the Gemara answers, Shani minus demashcha. Minus is the heresy is different than Avodah Zarah because it attracts like the type of heresy that Amin believes in leads him to proselytize, leads him to try to ensnare others. So Dasi Lumimshach Basrau, because if he gets cured and he becomes Amin, because you're susceptible to their proselytizing, and you might become an Avodah Zarah. Amar Marlo Vartel Divrei Chaverecha Shahayu Amrim Uparis Gader Yishchanu Nachash Ihu Name Chivya Tarke, but Tom was bitten by a snake. So so you're going to be worried. Don't go over don't transgress what the rabbis tell you because you'll be bitten by a snake. Here's a guy who was actually bitten by a snake. You shouldn't be worried about future snake bites, right? So chivya drabanan, delay slay asusa klal. The risk of being bitten by a rabbinic snake, if you will, is that there's no way out of that. That is like instant or certain death, and there's no doctor that can cure you of that snake bite. Um, okay, I'm sure that you could do a literary analysis that would be very interesting. Why he used this for a snake bite? He used this idea of Yishchan Nachash. Umay hava leila meimar. So what was Ben Dama's objection going to be? What was his proof going to be that he could use the mean doctor? V'chayba. He would have said, do my mitzvahs and live by them, live through them or by them. Um, don't die by them. So in other words, you can transgress mitzvahs of the Torah if it's to preserve your life. Rabbi Shmuel. So what would Rabbi Shmuel? Why didn't he know this, or why didn't he approve of this? Hani mile betzina. That's in private. Farhes yalo. But if it's in public, you can't transgress a Torah law to save your life. The Tanya, because we have Brisa, higher Mishal Omer Minayin, Shim Omrim Lecha, Omrim Lo Adam Avodah Kochavim V'Yal Te'arig. If an Ovid Kochavim if someone tries to force you at the point of a gun, that he'll kill you if you don't, to do idolatry, don't do it. Sheyavid V'Yal Yarig, that then that you should do it and not be killed. Because it says you should live with them, don't die with them. What about if this is in public? It says right after that, don't desecrate my name. So some idol worship in public is considered desecrating God's name, but in private, you can do it at the risk of your life. And I think we will stop here. And David will pick it up tomorrow. Yes. Have a good day, everybody.